Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Rashid Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, the whole cotton-picking bunch of you, as we say in the South, should resign and get out of the U.S. government.
I don't know if you guys know Jason Rapert, R-A-P-E-R-T. Try to enunciate the T on the end. Don't demonetize me, YouTube. Anyway, Jason Rapert is a pastor and was previously a congressman from Arkansas, I believe. He lost his election, and when he did, he just dove right into La La Land and created something called the National Association of Christian Lawmakers, NACL, and they basically draft bills and present them to right-wing nutcase like senators and stuff all around the country. Listen to what he had to say at his Save the Nation, I don't know, podcast, church attendance thing. I don't know what he wants to call it, but it's kind of like his religious sermon.
If I were the legislature, I would run a bill just abolishing the Arkansas State Library Board and let it be reconstituted.
He's miffed that the library is not removing the books that he wants removed.
New people in there. Or maybe they just need to call on people to resign if you're not going to do your job. You need to protect children.
Okay, that's not their job. Their job is to, like, dispense books, I think. It's a parent's job to protect children, right? What happened to personal responsibility and all that junk? Isn't that, like, all he talks about, usually?
Children. And when you don't protect children in America, you have no business serving in a public official's role. You have no business serving on a board. You have no business serving in a state legislature.
Look, the thing is with this, like, okay, sure, maybe there are a couple of books out there that are, like, weird and maybe shouldn't be available to children specifically. I mean, I guess I could see that, sure. But a library isn't just for children. It's for everybody, first of all. And second, he doesn't just want to remove those books. He wants to remove a ton of others that simply have, like, a gay character in it that isn't bad in any way. I mean, you can look at these lists of books that the NACL wants removed from libraries and stuff, and it's pretty much anything that mentions gay at any point. So it's not about children's safety. It's about censoring subjects to control culture. That's what this is really about.
Serving in a state legislature, you have no business being an elected official at any level if you're not going to protect children. When you get to a point that you're so confused and you're so completely jaded that you cannot make a decision to keep smut or pornographic stuff out of the front of children, you've lost.
Like, that's not happening. What are you talking about? Who is doing this?
Children, you've lost your ever-loving mind. And you need to be replaced. You need to be taken out.
See, he said this in another video. You need to be taken out. And it was pretty clear what he was implying at that time. We're going to play that in a minute. He's very clearly implying that somebody should... Well, I don't know about in this video. I think he's kind of implying it a little bit. But in the other, he was pretty clear. He was implying that somebody should, you know, take an AR-15 and do the job or something. It was really psychotic. And every time he uses that phrase now, he knows what he's doing.
You need to be taken out. No. Some people say, oh, he's talking about violence. No, I'm not talking about violence.
He was talking about violence the first time and every other subsequent time because of that first time, if no other reason.
Talking about violence? No, I'm not talking about violence. You need to be run out on a rail.
I've never heard that before.
You probably should be tarred and feathered.
Okay, that's violent. Are you serious? I looked this up. If you don't know what tarring and feathering is, I think they use tar from like a maple tree. It's kind of like sap, I understand, but they take it and they boil it, basically. It starts boiling, and then take a brush and they strip you completely naked and they brush this boiling hot tar all over your body. Causes blisters and stuff. Extremely painful. Won't kill you, but it's absolutely horrifically painful. And then they dump a bunch of feathers on your head and they force you to walk through town like that. Naked, feathers all over the place, boiling hot tar on your skin. It's like a KKK kind of tactic that he's talking about right now. It's like extreme as... And he said, no, I'm not talking about violence.
Rail. You probably should be tarred and feathered. That's what they used to do in America, is they would tar and feather those kind of folks. Get rid of them. Teach them a lesson. Get them out of office.
Teach him a lesson, you say? I mean, this dude's very clearly calling for violence, right? Here's the original where he first, well, the first time I remember him calling for violence like that.
We must take authority. God told us, said, go out there and be fruitful, multiply.
Okay, that means have a lot of kids, right? What does that have to do with authority?
Fill the earth, subdue it, and have dominion over everything. Fill the earth, subdue it.
Isn't that what human beings have done?
To take authority. And friends, the reason the country is struggling, the reason you've got $32 trillion in debt, no holds barred, the reason we come to brinksmanship over and over again on the national debt is because the Christians in America have failed to take authority, and now is the time to choose.
Okay, actually, the reason why we're $32 trillion in debt is because Republicans keep cutting cutting taxes and using putting expensive wars on the credit card, basically. George W. Bush spent $6 trillion or something on Iraq. How much money have we just lit on fire being in Afghanistan over the past 20 years? How much money did we spend on all kinds of stupid stuff? Donald Trump, of course, raised the debt dramatically, although it was for the right reasons, I think, in that case, by helping people with COVID stimulus money. But you know what? We should have a stockpile in case emergencies happen. We should have extra money around for that instead of putting a ton of money on the debt like that. It's a bad idea. And then cutting taxes like Trump did and like every other Republican president has done. They're not even cutting them for people that need it cut. They're cutting it for filthy rich people, people who are worth $20 million already. Why would you be cutting taxes for those people? How does that help anything? Anyway, that's why the debt is so high. And brinksmanship is part of a democratic system. The fact that people disagree is a sign that democracy is working, usually. And this guy is saying what we need to bypass democracy, I guess, to impose our will on the country. I mean, not ours. I mean, Christians need to impose their will. Christian extremists need to impose their will on the rest of the country.
Now is the time to stand. Now is the time to plan. Now is the time to fight. Now is the time to work together to save the country. Look, do you think that America is going to be free with a bunch of drag queens running this place?
Okay. Do you think that there are drag queens in government? Do you think that all Democrats are drag queens? And for the record, drag queen is a hobby, FYI. It's not something that people do for a job. Although that would be metal if you could do that for a job, right? Apparently some people do that for a job. Wow, I'm in the wrong industry right now. Anyway, the point is, there are no drag queens running the country. What are you even talking about?
No. Do you think America can remain free and strong with a bunch of Antifa nuts running around destroying property?
Oh, so we shouldn't have Antifa people around. Okay, great. Antifa is an ideology, not an organized group, as Donald Trump's FBI director stated.
Running around destroying property? No. And if you're tired of that stuff, then it's time to make a change. This is a nation of the people, by the people, and for the people.
But only the correct people, the ones that look like me, right?
It was created for you to be in charge. A nation of the people, by the people, and for the people. So
just stick the word Christian in there. Of the Christian people, by the Christian people, and for the Christian people is what he really means. Or I guess you could, I suppose that's probably interchangeable with white also.
The people. So when we have politicians and elected officials that are corrupt, they need to be taken out. Send them to jail. Send them to prison just like...
Taken out.
Prison, just like I've seen some people do even while I was serving in the Arkansas legislature. When you see people like Joe Biden taking advantage of position and enriching his family like...
But that didn't happen. What are you even talking about?
His family like he has done, it's time to take them out. Take them out. Remove them. Move them on.
I mean, you're catching this, right? It doesn't get much clearer than that. This is stochastic terrorism. He is targeting people and demonizing them in such a way that a lone wolf attack is nearly a guarantee.
It's time to take authority. It's time to take authority over everything in the earth to make a difference.
This is called raising the temperature. Remember all that complaining that Republicans did after Donald Trump got attacked by the assassin or whatever? They said that we need to lower the temperature. I can't do anything for you. I didn't raise the temperature. Jason Rapert with a T raised the temperature by saying like that. This dude is terrible. Here's another clip from him. This one is about abortion in Florida. This is March 2023. I believe that this was before abortion was undone, like before Roe v. Wade was undone, because I think that was in June. But after we knew that it was going to be undone because the draft leaked. Was that 23 or 22? Oh, it was in 2022. Okay, so this is after Roe v. Wade was reversed. Okay.
I'm here in the state of Florida. You know, Florida is one of the most populous states in the country now.
Is that true?
And it is one of the freest states in the country.
That's definitely not true.
Governor Ron DeSantis did a great job throughout the pandemic. And
that is not true either. Oh my God, he was the worst.
And holding the line and keeping his state open. And so I'm here. I'm glad to be here covering a lot of issues, meeting with legislators here in the state of Florida, and look forward to the session that is going on in the state of Florida. Now, friends, I want to talk to you today and set you up for the rest of the program that's going to air even tomorrow to talk about the issue of life. You know, I saw some stats the other day that
this guy who's in favor of the death penalty is going to tell us about how important life is. Go on.
The other day that worry me about the state of Florida, and that Florida is in one of the top 10 states in the nation for deaths through abortion. They have not been able to take.
Yeah, there is no quote unquote deaths through abortion. What the hell are you talking about right now? You talking about like this little grouping of cells?
Take down their protection to life at conception yet. I am prayerful that the state of Florida.
Look, why does it start at conception? Why doesn't it start even earlier than that? Like, is there like a mini Holocaust happening every time? You know, is there like a graveyard of dead bodies in a sock, like next to somebody's bed? Why not that? Why is it that the moment that somebody stands up to get a towel, that's when there's a third person in the room? It's just ridiculous nonsense.
As has done many states, even my home state of Arkansas, will say that we want to protect babies' lives from the very moment of conception.
But it's not a baby at conception. It's literally two cells. Two cells, but they merge into one, right? So it starts out as just one cell, an embryo. Is that right? I don't remember my biology. I failed.
When you do that, you will be doing exactly what the Bible instructs us to do.
Really? Could have fooled me. The Bible says that you must not get abortions. Don't tell that to Numbers 5:11-23. You know, the verse that specifically instructs people to get abortions in some cases, like if their wife cheats on them, for example. That verse, you remember that one? It even tells them how to get an abortion. Where in the Bible do you think it says don't get an abortion? It literally does not say that anywhere. This issue was pioneered by Jerry Falwell Sr. in the 70s, heavily, as an issue that he knew he could get people whipped into a blood frenzy over. He could get people to do literally anything to save a life. What would you not be justified in doing to save a human life? You should be willing to do just about anything. Now, the goal is to convince everybody around you that this is a human life, and boom, you've got extremists ready to go absolutely nuts. You know, actually, the abortion issue has always been a left-right issue since day one. In Germany in the 1920s and 30s, abortion was an issue then, too. The left-leaning political parties, specifically these social democrats, they were like the left-leaning ones, and they famously, their logo had 3 arrows pointing down. They fought Nazis a lot and stuff, and communists, as a matter of fact. Anyway, the social democrats were in favor of abortion, and condom vending machines all over the place. And that actually happened. They had them all over until the conservative far-right extremists, the Nazis, started pushing back, fighting against degeneracy and all of that other stuff, and saying that abortion is, taking out pure-blooded Aryan babies, although they were actually in favor of it if you were non-Aryan, quote-unquote. Anyway, it's always been the right complaining about this, and it's always been the left trying to move society forward. The Bible, though, never speaks negatively of abortion, and it's an embarrassment that this guy tried to use the Bible as a prop in his political battle. How do Christians like him and his flock, if you will, sleep at night, knowing that they just make up? This dude consistently takes the wrong position on pretty much every issue. Here's what he had to say about Palestine.
You get up and say you're giving billions of dollars to those people for humanitarian aid, and you think we're not smart enough to know that if you're sitting there and you're a terrorist organization running the Gaza Strip, if you send in $1 billion of humanitarian aid, that frees us up to use $1 billion to do something else.
You think that Hamas has $1 billion sitting around in the Gaza Strip that they are currently spending on humanitarian aid? And if the United States gives humanitarian aid to Palestinians, then Hamas is going to spend it on ICBMs or something? Like, what? This makes absolutely zero sense. It's like he doesn't know the first thing about the subject. Like, literally nothing.
You are lying devils. And you're evil.
No, you are.
That money that you put, any money that you send to terrorist organizations and those that support them is being turned around and used against innocent people.
Yeah, except it's not being sent to terrorist organizations. That would actually be illegal, to my knowledge. It's money that's being spent in the United States on United States companies to purchase bottled water and food and blankets and things like that, which were manufactured by American companies or were shipped in by American companies or whatever, and being brought to Gaza to be given to other people. So it's benefiting the American economy. Even if it's bought in Europe or China or whatever, it's still giving US dollars velocity, is what it's called in economics. This is benefiting the United States, and it's benefiting Palestinians. But this guy just straight up doesn't want Palestinians to, be benefited, at all.
Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Rashid Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, the whole cotton-picking bunch of you, as we say in the South.
Cotton-picking bunch of you. That is actually originally a very racist term. I understand that in the South, it's kind of been normalized in modern day, so it's not as racist anymore, but it was specifically in reference to slaves. I looked this up a while back.
Cotton-picking bunch of you, as we say in the South, should resign and get out of the U.S. government.
You can't tell me this guy didn't know that about the term cotton-picking, right? He knew that, didn't he? This is the kind of that the KKK has always done, FYI. Pretended that they're not affiliated with the KKK and then slip in little dog whistles like that all over the place. You know, David Duke, the leader of the KKK, was a politician. I believe he's a politician before he became the leader of the KKK. I'm not sure if he was a leader first. Anyway, there are so many politicians involved in the KKK and vice versa that it's disturbing. If I had to put money on it, I would bet that this guy is a member.
Should resign and get out of the U.S. government. You have no place of authority. You have funded terrorism while standing to say you oppose it. Shame on you.
This guy is a joke of a human being, and it's truly disgusting, some of the stances he takes. Some of the ways in which he is ruining people's lives actively is just wrong. And, he's still operating, like, to this day under the National Association of Christian Lawmakers. And he's, like, working with, like, right-wing extremists and everything to accomplish his goals. It's insane. Oh, my God. You know who else is part of the NACL, his group? I'll show you who is. Oh, there are so many good ones. Here is one of the NACL lawyers. Her name is Janet Porter. I think she's maybe a co-founder, or maybe she's just like their head litigator. I'm not sure. She's very high up in the NACL. And she is the one who wrote the first heartbeat bill. This is her coming out against the Equality Act.
The third point is it'll repeal the pro-life laws. Then it will endanger women.
Reasons why we say no to the Equality Act. I mean, this is some real mental gymnastics, right? How can we justify shooting down the Equality Act of all things?
Imagine if you're a woman who's been abused by her husband, who finds herself, she goes to a shelter. All right? Guess what? This shelter is not going to be able to refuse any man as long as they say, I'm a woman, I identify as a woman with a...
Nonsense. This pisses me off every time I hear it. I'm sorry. Look, my mom was in and out of domestic violence shelters for years and years and years. And domestic violence shelters accept boys, children, if they're like part of the family unit or whatever. Back in the 80s, when my mom was, in a domestic violence shelter, she told me this story when I was little. She told me when I was like 10 about this guy that was there. And she's like, what are you doing here? And he said, I'm an abuse victim. She said, oh, okay. And just moved on with her life. Simple as that. Nobody cares if there's a man in the system too. That being said, the people that are in these DV shelters are victims of scumbags that are like depraved and willing to do whatever it takes to get their way usually, right? Stalkers and just terrible people. So I support a domestic violence shelter's right to deny anybody for any reason. And I think pretty much everybody agrees with that. But again, this problem doesn't exist. Like, what man is being rejected because he's abused? I've never heard of that before. Like, people just, if they're abused, then they go to these shelters. That's it. It's how it's always been. Who is complaining about this thing that she's talking about right now? Anyway, I can see a situation in which, like, a woman is kind of traumatized, has PTSD from some of the things that she's had to go through at these shelters, obviously, right? But if she's having like, PTSD flashbacks and stuff as a result of being around a man, that needs to be, people need to work with her to fix that. There's a story of a woman who was afraid of men with beards. So a therapist, she had PTSD from it. So her therapist would set her on a bus bench and he would put on a fake beard and he would walk by her like 20 feet away, just walk by. It's voluntary exposure therapy for PTSD. You have to function in society. That's part of the deal. So domestic violence shelters should be focused on rehabilitating people who are dealing with, serious trauma or whatever. And if that's the case, they should be sequestered into an area where they are safe to not be exposed to any triggers. And it's not just men that could be triggers. It's all kinds of things that could be triggers. Hell, it could be like boys that are with their moms that are triggers, anything. So if a woman is having one of these serious bad reactions to people that are in the shelter, then she should be put in a place that's safe where she can approach this issue on her own time in her own way, right? That's voluntary exposure. This issue that Janet Porter is presenting is shamelessly using abused women to further her political ends. And that is fucking disgusting. She's arguing against the Equality Act and using abused women against, to further her goals. That's just wrong.
The simple costume change. Any man can invade a shelter, can invade your shower room.
This is just like a lie. She's just lying. She knows this. She's a lawyer.
Your locker room, your bathroom, can come into any previously safe space. It is what some are calling political of women because it's...
Anyway, she's just lying. She's lying here.
Putting them in such harm's way. If you are a serial rapist and you'd like to go to the woman's prison instead of the man's prison, again, say you're a woman.
That is not how it works. That's not how it has ever worked. She's completely full of... She's trying to get people all freaked out over something that doesn't exist so that they will be mobilized to work against the Equality Act. The Equality Act.
And there you are. And all of these women who are incarcerated are also put in harm's way. Shelters also in harm's way.
That truly disgusts me, that shelters thing. Seriously. I have a personal investment in this, and that's f***ing disgusting. Here's her on Jim Baker's TV show. I have this one marked as Janet Porter is a QAnoner. I don't actually remember what's in it.
I don't think we've ever had a presidential election since 1973 where abortion hasn't been the most important front and center issue.
Thanks to Jerry Falwell Sr., yeah.
It is the issue. It's the life and death issue. It's what the whole battle is all about.
Okay, hang on. Hearn Weber. She's saying a stalker would dress in drag to gain access to their victim. I've never heard of any woman complaining that that's a problem in their lives, that a domestic violence shelter accepted a man in to access his ex-girlfriend or whatever. I've never heard of that complaint, except from Janet Porter. That's it. Like, even my mom, who was in and out of DV shelters like for her whole life, didn't deal with this. And again, I support a domestic violence shelter's right to deny any person for any reason. They have to deal with scumbags all the time.
Battle is all about at the court level and really everywhere else. And this is the choice we're going to be facing, life or death. And you know, we're in this together. What we understand is that we need unity. Where we go one, we go all. I don't think we've ever.
Oh boy, where we go one, we go all. That's an interesting phrase to say, isn't it? That's a completely meaningless phrase, by the way. I don't know if anybody caught on to that. It means nothing. Where we go one, we go all. What the hell does it even mean? Nothing. It's from an old movie from like the 90s or something. And it's just some stupid catchphrase they thought would catch on. And it was picked up by QAnon. The only people that ever say it are QAnoners. It's in the QAnon pledge. If you hear somebody say that phrase or use the series of letters and numbers, WWG W1GA, is that it? I think that's it. Where we go one, we go. Yeah, I was right. WWG1WGA. They sign things like that. Where we go one, we go all. It's QAnon thing. She's signaling that she's a part of QAnon. Oh my God, dude. A lawyer. Is she like really a QAnoner, or is she just signaling to QAnon? Is she really that stupid, or is she lying? I cannot tell. Anyway, tell me what you think about these people in the comments. They're just ridiculous.